we have a few questions here. I'll kind of combine them. One of them is about modern monetary theory, MMT, and then another one is about Dr. Stephanie Kelton's book, The Deficit Myth. So I'm wondering if you just want to briefly address modern monetary theory, Stephanie Kelton's work, what you think about it. And then I would add my own question to that briefly. How does modern monetary theory fit into superimperialism? Because the point I would add is that you can only do modern monetary theory style spending if you have a sovereign currency and if that sovereign currency is backed by a military and you don't have to do trade in the US dollar. So, I mean, in many ways, it seems to me that modern monetary theory is only really possible for the US because of superimperialism.
Well, Stephanie has been the major promoter of the now obvious idea that governments do not have to borrow from bondholders in order to finance their budget deficits. They can simply print the money. And the effect of printing the money is no more inflationary than borrowing from billionaires. If you borrow from a billionaire money that they would not have spent and spend it into the economy, the monetary effect is exactly the same as simply printing the money and creating it. And Stephanie used to be the #1 promoter of modern monetary theory until, of course, she was overtaken by Donald Trump. That said, we can cut taxes, run an enormous deficit, and as long as we give all of the deficit to the wealthiest 1% by using 8 trillion to bid up stock and bond prices and only 2 trillion into the economy, we can create all the money we have. And of course, he had a larger audience than Stephanie has. We've gone around the world giving speeches together, but never, I think the largest audience we had was maybe 40,000 in a sports stadium in Italy once, where people came to hear us talk about monetary theory. But we didn't have Donald Trump's constituency, and he's shown that monetary theory works. The difference is that the Republicans and now the Democratic and the Federal Reserve's idea of monetary theory is, of course, the government can create all the money it wants simply by printing it, but because the government's been privatized by the commercial banks and the financial sector. And so when we do create money, we're going to create it to enrich the 1%, not the 99%. Well, of course, Stephanie and me and the rest of the University of Missouri at Kansas City staff, Randy Ray and the others, we all wanted, our whole idea of printing money to finance deficits was to spend it into the economy, to create a full employment economy, like Pavlina Chernova has been urging. Our idea was not to create money, to give it to create a stock and bond bubble. And so somehow the idea of MMT has been hijacked by the right-wingers and the Federal Reserve that are running away wild with it beyond anything we could have imagined.
Well, really quickly, Professor Hudson, I mean, I think there's a lot of value to modern monetary theory, and you just articulated that. But at the same time, I've seen this argument articulated, and I'm curious about your thoughts, that you could say that, for instance, Venezuela tried modern monetary theory, but because the currency was totally devalued by an economic war by the United States, it doesn't have the same kind of financial international economic power that the United States has, or that a currency like the euro would have. So, of course, a country like Greece can't do MMT because Greece doesn't have a sovereign currency, and a country like Venezuela can't do MMT. It seems to me that only a major economic power that other countries might use their currency to trade in, like the United States, would be able to carry out these policies.
The key is the balance of payments effect. No country can go broke if its debts are denominated in its own currency. Venezuela can print all the domestic currency it needs to pay its debts to keep the economy going, but it can't print dollars. Only the United States government can create dollars, and in as much as Venezuela's foreign debt is in dollars, that is beyond the ability of its government and treasury to print. So Venezuela's problem.
And Greece can't print euros.
That's right. It can't do that either. And when the United States structured the Eurozone, it made sure that no central government, no national government could create its own national currency, so they can't run budget deficits to spend into the economy to help a recovery. The Eurozone has turned Europe into a dead zone because it is unable to use modern monetary theory, because the European Central Bank will, and the terms of the Eurozone agreements are that no government can run a deficit of more than 3%. Well, obviously, if the United States functioned under the Eurozone rules, we couldn't have had the Trump boomlet. We couldn't have had the policies that President Biden is suggesting. So the Eurozone has committed economic suicide by following a pro-creditor deflationary policy on the logic that if the government doesn't create credit, there's only one source of financing for the economy, and that source is private banks. So the Eurozone economic philosophy is designed to enrich private banks and their credit creation, not the government credit creation. And that's the key of modern monetary theory. Either credit's going to be created by private banks at interest for the things that private banks lend credit for, or it will be created by government for the public interest and the kind of things that government run deficits for, if they're good governments, to spend into the economy.